Just a few days ago, the Senate of North Dakota greenlit a bill that would increase the amount of money that they individually would be able to expense for their meals when they're traveling around the state. They obviously have to travel to interact with their constituents and do research and all that, and they want to be able to buy food while they're out. And food's expensive. So obviously they're not gonna stop them from getting a little bit more money for food. I'm gonna stress the them though, because there are a lot of people that they don't give a damn if they go hungry. That vote that they approved came just days after the same group of lawmakers voted against legislation that could have expanded a free school lunch program for some of the state's neediest students. But I do want to point out, in case it's not obvious, the incredibly poor and vulnerable children who will now be denied a free lunch are not state legislators. So I don't know why we would care about this. Clearly their government did not. Anyway, sarcasm aside, the legislation would have dedicated $6 million over the next two school years to cover lunch costs for K through 12 students with family incomes below double the federal poverty level. So to make sure that these kids have at least one good meal a day for 2 years, it would have cost $6 million. And they said no. And then they turned around and they gave themselves more money to buy lunch. I mean, it's almost, I think, Conscious, like a perfect encapsulation of American politics in the way especially Republicans treat people who are desperately in need of help. But what do you think?
Somebody gotta let the Republicans know that if you don't feed the children while they in school, who you gonna recruit to run your militaries? You feel me? If you don't want to feed the 5th graders and the 6th graders and the 7th graders, who you gonna sign up on the front line to go fight for corporate interests? You see what I'm saying? You gotta be able to get your business in line. And right here, this seems like it's a bad business decision. You know what I mean? Education is elevation. We recognize that we're able to give the kids nutrients, they're able to learn better. So if you want to even make it where you can compete against the other countries in terms of science diplomacy or whatever the hell y'all want to compete against, it makes sense to feed the children.
Yep. Or maybe it makes sense to make the kids as desperate as possible so they're willing to throw themselves into any position that will give them a little bit of money to eat. Maybe it'll make them desperate enough. Yeah. Be all you can be so that you can eat all you can eat, I guess. Now, look, it seems fairly obvious to a lot of people that voting to increase your meal allowance and then denying it to poor kids is a bad look. But North Dakota Senate Assistant Majority Leader Jerry Klein, one of the 13 senators who voted in favor of reimbursements and against school lunches, told in Inforum that he didn't think there was any, quote, correlation whatsoever between the two bills, noting that lawmakers have to, quote, treat each issue separately. Well, I'm sure you'd like that. And he said, by the way, he added that state employees should get a higher per diem because inflation has made eating out that much more expensive. Now, here is a message I want to send to North Dakota Senate Assistant Majority Leader Jerry Klein. So you seem to understand the concept that inflation makes food more expensive. I'm gonna blow your freaking mind. Now, see if you can keep up with me. That doesn't just affect the food that you want to eat. What if the poorest people in your state also are having more trouble buying food because inflation affects them too? I know, it's wild. Don't run. We can get through this together. I think we can come to the other side understanding that if you have personally experienced difficulty in buying food, you should be perfectly positioned to understand how other people could be similarly affected, or if they have less means than you, affected even worse than you. But no. By the way, in North Dakota in 2020, 1 in 12 kids faced hunger. That was in 2020. It'll probably be a little bit worse now, thanks to the effect of their state legislature, but that was the status at least a few years ago.